Thank you. Thank you. Wow, that's the loudest applause I've had in a long time. We're going to go back in time. So I'm going to wear a hat. My wife is in the audience too, so I'm going to tone this down a little bit. Normally I'm a little crazier, so I've got to be a little careful. When I'm a Pine Lake guy, and when you restore a home like this, it's a lot more than the home. You learn a lot about the community. You learn a lot about the original owners and the architects. You learn a lot just about the area. And we are the fourth owner of this home. It's my goal today. I have only one goal, is to leave here and have you, first of all, hopefully enjoy the presentation, but my goal is really that you learn something here. Because as the city has grown, there are a lot of things that we've lost. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you back in time. But before I do that, first I'd just like to say thank you very much to Dave for bringing me on. John Marshall's actually the guy that hooked me. John gave me so much help on doing research on this home that I felt like I owed it to him. John's a great guy. And thank you to the Bloomfield Township Historical Society. I can tell by the demographics in the room that as we get older, things like this become more important. And it's great. I think it's a wonderful learning experience. So here's my story. Once upon a time, there was a young man from Kansas. He got hired by Ford Motor Company down in Dearborn, and he dreamed about living the life of an auto baron. Now, who wouldn't? You're coming into the auto industry, there probably isn't a person in the auto industry that doesn't have that dream. I'm just a little nuts, I'm a little nerdy, and so I pursue things a little harder maybe than other people do. But this story starts way before I arrive in Detroit. And so here's my challenge. For the next two slides, I got to keep your attention. These are horrible slides. They're like the worst slides I've ever done in corporate America. So now that we're in this environment, I'm going to try not to bore you, but here's where we're going to start our whole transition. First, we're going to talk about Michigan and Detroit. So what happens? In 1783, Michigan actually becomes a territory after resolving all of our differences with England and France and Spain. And so you think that we actually have rights to the property here in Michigan, right? Wrong. There are actually 4 Native American tribes that really occupy what we call Southeast Michigan today. They basically control 8 million acres of where we live today. They are the Potawatomi, the Chippewa, the Ottawa, and the Wyandot tribes. Now, we cut them a deal, and this is where I'm going to put an asterisk on this whole presentation. I'm giving you the Disney version of this. If you want the real history version of that, it's a little deeper, a little darker, so I'm going to do the Disney version of everything, okay? So we cut a deal with the Native Americans. We said, you have 8 million acres we want. How about we give you 1.2 cents per acre, and we call it a deal. You cede, meaning you give up your rights and leave the area, and we'll take it over. Is that a deal? Actually, it's the truth. That's the Treaty of Detroit, and that's how it went down. And believe me, that's the Disney version. It was much uglier than that. So by 1815, we really, if you're a civil engineer, you got a great job. We're out surveying the land. They're looking how to break up the land and how to track the ownership, who owns what where. Oakland County gets divided into 6 mile by 6 mile squares. And there's 25 of them that will become townships. Just for a random guess, anybody know what number 6 is? The questions will get harder as we go. It is Novi, that's correct. So let's call them not very creative. They didn't come up with a very good, they're number 6. Okay, by 1820, most of the land is being purchased in this area by settlers, sight unseen. A lot of them out of Pennsylvania and New York. Now, we talk about the Pure Michigan campaign. This was the Go West Young Man campaign, right? And so we're selling 40-acre increments, and everybody's moving west. Anybody know what the population of Detroit is in 1820? Take a guess. 1,422. And in all of Oakland County, 320. Native Americans count 6,000 to 7,000, just to give you a perspective. Bloomfield Township's chartered, 1847. It's the first township chartered in Oakland County. In 1828, we get our first commercial railroad. This is the railroad that runs from downtown Detroit up to Royal Oak. After Royal Oak, the railroad says there's really nothing out here. We're like, why should we go any further? I mean, by the way, this whole area you're calling this new area like Bloomfield, it's all swampy, it's a mess. The roads are literally impassable by a wagon, and that's what the railroad claims in 1828. So they stop at Royal Oak. Michigan actually now becomes a state in 1837. So all of this is happening before Michigan is really even a state. And now, John Marshall taught me this, if you're going to try to find some legal documents on your home, and if you live in Oakland County, and you start looking before 1840, you aren't going to find much. You see, it's all written by hand in books, the ledgers. Sometimes it's alphabetical, sometimes it's by section, sometimes it's a mess. It's really hard to find stuff. But everybody starts getting serious in 1840 because we're selling all these parcels and the area is really starting to grow. So, second ugly slide. The best news that hits the area is now we have a commercial railroad in 1842 that goes all the way up to Pontiac. Well, why do I care? And by the way, this would be the railroad that if you live in Birmingham, right, it would be near the Big Rock, the old Big Rock restaurant, but the commercial line goes up basically parallel to Kensington Road. That's the railroad we're talking about. And it's commercial. Now, why does that matter? Well, if you're a farmer or a rancher, how do you think you're going to get your stuff all the way downtown to Eastern Market? Well, the train makes that incredibly viable for you to live in this area and still have the commercial ability to sell your goods in Detroit, because that's where a majority of the people are. Now, you can do the farming thing, but I'm saying it's a huge win for Detroit. Now, that's the commercial line. It literally takes another 50 plus years, and all of a sudden, from downtown Detroit, we have a second railroad. Now, this one happens to parallel the Saginaw Trail, which is Woodward Avenue. And in Woodward, this urban light-duty trolley, it only carries people. But it's amazing. So all of a sudden, you can get from downtown Detroit all the way out to the lake areas in about 76 minutes. That's faster than you can get there in an automobile because the roads versus the rail, okay? So this rail, it's a trolley, all the way up to Pontiac. Take a left at Pontiac, you go down through Kego, down through Sylvan Lake, and it basically hovers down Orchard Lake Road until it gets to Farmington. There's called the Farmington Junction. It takes a turn, it goes back down roughly Grand River Avenue, back to Detroit. It's amazing. For the first time, Detroiters really have mobility. They have mobility on these trolleys. What's it cost? About a quarter to ride, which is a lot of money, but relatively speaking, a lot cheaper than a car, right? A lot cheaper from a time and energy versus trying to get on a horse or a wagon. So 1899, all of a sudden it's like we get one of these, Houston, there's a problem. Here's the problem. We have horses, we have wagons, we have the early advent of cars, and we have trolleys. What happens when you get to an intersection? I mean, there's no rules. I mean, there literally are no rules at all. So this group in the Detroit Club, by the way, the Detroit Club still exists today. If you want to go for a great lunch, go down to Fort Street and Cass in downtown Detroit. When you walk in the door, you're back in 1900. I mean, it's beautiful and it's fully restored, great place. But this was a meeting place for some of the top people in Detroit. And the Auto Club of Detroit decides, we need to start making some rules. I mean, there's traffic jams in downtown Detroit already in this time period. And by the way, the rules of the road are equally funny. I brought a couple rules of the road because last time I didn't have the rules of the road for people to understand. In Michigan, it's against the law for you to sit in the middle of an intersection and read a newspaper. I am not kidding. If you get to an intersection in the country and you have to open a gate, it's mandatory that you close the gate or it's a $750 fine. $750, that's more than an annual wage, okay? That's a big deal, like they don't want their cattle or sheep to get out, right? There are so many funny rules. You know, come to an intersection, you gotta raise a flag, you gotta, toot a whistle. I'm going to say this, and I swore I wasn't going to do it. I'm going to do it. It's fun. In the state of Oregon, if a woman is driving a car, her husband has to walk in front of the car waving a red flag. So it's silly, right? These are silly, silly rules. This is, Now, it's 1800. There's 8,000 cars on the road. I'm a car guy. So you're going to get a lot of car guy stuff and you're going to get a lot of Pine Lake stuff, okay? There's 8,000 cars on the road in America. There's 144 miles of paved roads. By the way, none of those roads means concrete paved. Concrete, no, it doesn't. You're not paving with concrete. You're paving with cobblestones. None of those vehicles on the road are Fords. None of them. You know why? Ford doesn't exist yet. These are Oldsmobiles, they're Duriers, they're Packards, but Ford Motor Company doesn't exist yet. So it's an interesting time. In 1903 now, Henry Ford comes out and we now know the Ford Motor Company is founded. In 1903 and 1904, he brings out his first model. It's called the Model A. The Model A is $870. It's kind of a disaster. I mean, it sells hundreds, but it's not doing what Henry wants it to do. But $870, I think the average wage in this time is about $750 for annual wage. So an average person cannot afford a car. Again, that's why the trolleys are so important. Now, by 1914, Henry has big plans. Now, he's a tinkerer. Henry goes through the Model A, the Model B, the C, the D. He's going through the whole alphabet, right? He's trying to make the cars more reliable and lower in cost. And he finally gets to the T, and Henry says, I'm done. I've perfected the car, right? But in 1914, he's really on about the N model. And he decides basically, I need so much production capacity. He moves from the Paulette Avenue plant over to Highland Park. He brings in all of the people he can bring in, and he doubles effectively the wage of people. So this is the famous $5 wage. It comes in 1914. And what he's thinking about is getting enough workers to work in his plant. What the people are saying is, wow, you basically doubled my wage. And that's a huge deal to get up to $1,250 to $1,350 a year in wage. 1915 happens to be a really hot year. And the people now are starting to have a little bit of money. And you know where they want to go? They want to go up north. And you know where up north is? See, when I came to Michigan, I thought up north meant the UP. But when they talk about up north, they mean the Bloomfield area lakes. Orchard Lake, Pine Lake, you know, they're coming up for the water. It's cool, the nature. They can camp, they can fish, they can swim, they can have a lot of fun. But they're coming up north to get out of the heat of the big city and get away from the hustle and the bustle and the problems. So it's now 1920. Detroit's the fourth largest city in the country. So it's incredible the growth that's happening. And people are looking for jobs. They're coming from the south, they're coming from the east, they're coming from everywhere. The auto industry is booming, the housing industry is booming. It's a really interesting time in our history. And we have developers now starting to make their name on society, guys like Judson Bradway. And they're taking whole areas of property and they're developing them. And some of you live in a Judson Bradway subdivision. They're easy to tell. They don't have straight rows and straight lines and straight square property. All of their roads, they wind. They have really big setbacks. And he's trying to sell high-end homes. He's trying to make it really beautiful. Okay. I could have taken it easy on you and just showed you this slide. You know, but I'm a nerd. I got to go through the details. But this is the same thing I just told you. You know, before the early 1800s, it's all Native Americans up here. All Native Americans. The farmers, the ranchers, they come in next. The agrarian lifestyle, living off the land. In the late 1800s, things start to be really productive in Detroit, and the money starts to rise. And so we have people wanting to build their estates up north. We call these the estate builders. And then everybody else that wants to vacation up north, those are the vacationers. So we have two new groups of people traveling into this area because there's so much natural resource here. And then after this time period, in the late 20s, I probably should put a little asterisk on this too, because the stock market crashes in 1929 and kind of wipes out home building for realistically until after World War II. But you know, my presentation, my slides. So my Disney version says it turns into suburbanites, right? Everyone's building a subdivision in your homes. So when I say it's muddy up here, it's muddy. This is a 1901 Oldsmobile Curve Dash automobile. That vehicle sells for $650. The gentleman driving it is he's an affluent gentleman. He is wearing this, you know, nice top hat. He's looking very polished and dapper, and he's just about ready to get stuck. See, if there's anything that this area is known for, it's known for swampy land. And so they drive next to the trolleys. Why? Because if they get stuck, the trolley will pull them out. See, if they were just in a normal area and you got stuck up to the axles, you're not going anywhere. I mean, you can walk home, right? So, here's my focus. So I'm going to go a little deeper, but now I'm going to go more narrow. My home is on Pine Lake. And the estate builders and the vacationers are really popular in the late 1800s and the early 1900s. So we're going to go a little deeper on that time frame, okay? So here we go. A couple more ugly slides and I'll be through this. And it'll be all pictures, okay? So I'll wake you all back up after this. Okay, so I said before, prior to 1870, this is all agrarian, meaning it's farmers, it's ranchers, it's people living off the land. 1885, if you're living in the Pine Lake area and you're a farmer, a rancher, you start thinking about how am I going to educate my kids? And the first schoolhouse in that area comes in 1885. It's there even today. It's at the corner of Long Lake Road and Middle Belt. And if you drive that area, it's on the south side of the road. If you drive that, you probably pass it by every day and you don't even know that it's there. It's kind of like a little hidden gem. But that's how they educated their kids. They all went to that school. In 1895, the Interlaken Hotel opens. You see, Pine Lake's popular. People like to get out of the city. There's a hotel that comes in. I'll show you that in a second in more detail. In 1895, we get a marina on Pine Lake. By the way, Pine Lake actually has a steamboat on it. It's a ferry that runs from the marina side of the lake over to the hotel. It's the Interlaken ferry. Orchard Lake has 3 of them. One of them goes from the Orchard Lake Hotel over to Apple Island and back. So it's really interesting. I had no idea there were even steamboats on these lakes. I mean, these are small steam-powered boats, but pretty interesting. Also in 1895, anybody Episcopalian in here? Yes, good, we got one. There are a group from Grosse Pointe. They're highly affluent women. And here's another asterisk because this is where my Disney history crosses over. These fine women from Grosse Pointe decide that they're going to buy some property up on Pine Lake. They actually buy 100 acres. They only end up using 30, so they sell off 70. But what they're doing is they're creating homes they call cottages. The most famous one is called Holiday House. And what they do is they take young girls out of the inner city who are working. I didn't say child slave labor, but it feels like, child labor to get the families to be able to afford their lifestyle. And they're working so hard that they never get a break. And these Episcopalian ladies say, if you are of good character, you can come up, live in our holiday house for a couple weeks every year, and just enjoy it. Enjoy the water, enjoy the lakes, learn some more about Christianity, undoubtedly, but it's a wonderful thing. And these are all of the ladies of Grosse Pointe that are from the Episcopalian. This group still exists today, all over the country. The Girls Friendly Society still exists. And what they are doing was just wonderful, but it's at Pine Lake. Now, 1901, my little electric trolley finally arrives it's going up to Pontiac, like I said, takes a left turn, goes down what we affectionately call, Orchard Lake Road today, not literally. The trolley moves through Sylvan Lake and through Kego, it makes some more stops. The Grand Trunk Railroad truly goes from Pontiac right through the gap between Orchard Lake and Pine Lake. And they're kind of on parallel paths. You guys know the Grand Trunk Railroad, right? Anybody know Grand Funk Railroad? Okay. They were out of Flint. The Grand Trunk Railroad is out of Canada. It's a Canadian railway trying to make passage to Chicago. The reality is it goes right through the middle of Pine Lake and Orchard Lake on its way. Kind of a fun side fact. So the trolley makes 9 stops on its way from Pontiac on its way down to Farmington, they call it Farmington Junction, at Grand River, and then it goes back to Detroit. What's fun about this is just carrying people. Everybody, it's an easy way to get up north and enjoy the lakes. It's just wonderful. Now in 1902, the Auto Club of Detroit actually builds their first clubhouse. Today we call that Pine Lake Country Club. But back in its day, it was a place where the auto barons of Detroit, they'd have some fun. They would drive out to the country. They would have a place to stop and socialize and entertain. And every one of the auto barons that I can think of was a part of this. So 1902, we have the Auto Club of Detroit. Now, all of this happens before the big volume of the Model T. 1908 is the first year of the Model T. So as Henry is tinkering, remember his first vehicle is really expensive, $870, and now he's trying to figure out, how do I break the pieces down? How do I improve the reliability? How do I lower the cost? These are challenges in automotive we deal with every day, right? And he's doing it too, until 1908. and he says, I think I've got it perfected. By the way, and then getting Henry off the Model T, the history books is very difficult later too. 1908, the Interlaken subdivision is actually created. So there's the hotel there, and then around the hotel there's a whole subdivision. It's the first subdivision in the Pine Lake area. And now much of the farming, these were big farms, they're starting to go away because all the land is getting gobbled up by people that now want to build their country home. And a country home is just carved right out of the old farms. And the farms go away and they move up farther north. And this area really around the lakes really starts to get gobbled up, really gets gobbled up. Now in 1917, the Auto Club, and by the way, there's auto clubs of blank, Auto Club of Los Angeles, Auto Club of, every city in the country has the same problems with horses, with cars, with trolleys, railroads. So they actually sell their clubhouse to Pine Lake to become a private country club in 1917. And it has 7 holes of golf. Then it gets 9, and then they buy enough land to get to 18. And guys like in 1918, you have other guys out there, developers like Judson Bradway, who's kind of my figurehead guy. He's developing Birmingham and Bloomfield into a first-class place to live. He's building what they call country homes. So country homes are kind of a big thing. A country home, they start popping up all over this area. It's a really important thing. Bradway is also instrumental in helping to pave Woodward, and he's a big advocate for the Windsor Tunnel. So he's an important guy in kind of the history of this area. And 1925 is a major, major thing. Ford now builds 2 million Model Ts per year at a price of $260 each. Now remember, just a few years ago, in 1903, no one, you had to be very affluent to afford an automobile. In 1925, if you're part of this middle class, you can absolutely afford a Model T. And so what's the world look like? Well, now the world's changing quite a bit because Pine Lake and Orchard Lake start to boom. They're really busy places. They're so busy that by 1930, they even put in a restaurant and hotel called Charlie's Crab. Anybody ever been to Charlie's Crab? Yeah, so half the room has. It actually burnt down in 1975, but it shows you what was happening in the area. Okay, so some pictures. No more words. Now just pictures. Here's Pine Lake. The little green circle, that's the Interlaken Hotel location. The yellow around it is the subdivision, the Interlaken subdivision. Across the lake in the yellow oval is where the original Auto Club of Detroit clubhouse is, okay? So it's pretty much going to be pictures from this point on, okay? Here's the Interlaken Hotel. Now, most people are going to be here on horse. You see a horse, you see a little one-horse kind of a wagon over there on the left. You come across the water if you arrive by rail on the steamboat. It's a beautiful place to be. Now here's the Auto Club of Detroit, the first Auto Club of Detroit on the left. It's built by a guy by the name of George Hodges, who is a big landowner in this area, big landowner. And then of course it becomes the Pine Lake Country Club in 1917, and then you can see an aerial picture of the 7-hole golf course as it starts, not 18. Now this is my favorite slide of the deck, so if you hate this one, you're going to hate me. Sorry about that. Went one too far, right here. So if you look around Pine Lake, there's a lot of development. So I've mentioned half of this already, but let's go through it. The purple triangle over there, that's St. Mary's today. We call it St. Mary's Orchard Lake Schools. But before it was St. Mary's, it was actually the Michigan Military Academy. It was second only to West Point. So think of West Point and the Michigan Military Academy. The Orchard Lake Hotel is actually on the same property. It's still there today, by the way. It's not operational, but it's still there. The little red dot, or the little red triangle, not a triangle, it's a diamond. The little red diamond is where Charlie's Crab was. And before being called Charlie's Crab, it's obviously the Rotunda Inn, right? Built by George Hodges, same guy that built the Pine Lake Country Club. I'll talk about him in a second. The yellow area is where the Pine Lake Auto Club of Detroit is located. The little blue star, that's where I live. That's where our home is. And if you look at the blue star, this is 1908. Look at the map kind of in 1908, then look to the right in 1915. See the number 12? The number 12 is in exactly the same spot. So in the blue star, that's where Estella Snell buys her property for her home, and look at what it looks like only 7 years later. I mean, all of it's cut up, So our home, we had 8 acres. When Estella buys the land, she buys 8 acres. But you can see that the map looks very, very different from 1908 to 1915. It's transitioned into country homes. So as we keep going around the blue oval, that's where the Girls Friendly Society is. And remember, they had 100 acres. They got it down to 30, sold off to 70. Started putting little homes on this area for the girls to live in. And this is girls only. And I'm told some of the girls are as young as 5 to 7, and really up to kind of a maximum of maybe their teens. So this is younger girls that are working hard in our society that are going to get a break by the Episcopalian ladies from Grosse Pointe. The little red heart, that's our schoolhouse. So that's Long Lake going left-right, and Middle Belt going north and south. The green area is obviously Interlaken, and that little red circle at the very end, that's one of the trolley stops. So if you're on the DUR, the Detroit United Railway, that's where the electric trolley will stop. Okay? Now, this is what life looks like. I'm at the corner, see the photo, you're at the corner of Orchard Lake Road and Pontiac Trail. What do you see? The year's 1919. It's all Model Ts. You know why they're stopped there? There's a gas station there. As you go forward, closer to Orchard Lake, and in between Orchard Lake and Pine Lake, it's actually a gravel road. Now they charge you a toll to get through this area. So this is my favorite side story. There happens to be a retired Army Brigadier General named Frederick Strong Jr. Now, he's been in the Army for 43 years, okay? He comes back to his home, and when he left, it was him in nature. It was him in the water, him in the birds and the trees. When he comes back, this is what he sees. And here's his quotes. People are swarming all over private property in droves. They're putting on their bathing suits in their cars for swims in the lake, and they're picnicking on private lawns. But picnicking, he also includes camping. What a mess. So here's this really disciplined Army guy who thought he was coming back to a very nature-based setting, and all of a sudden, what does he really get? He gets chaos. He's not happy. This is the most important piece. As a matter of fact, the principal reason for forming the village of Orchard Lake was to prevent trespassing and to police the damn roads. Yeah, see, Widmer's had this problem for 100 years. It's not completely hers, right? The roads are terrible, and people are all over the place. So he actually is so disgusted with what happens, he ends up retiring in San Diego. I'm not kidding. He leaves the area. Anyway, that's a side story, but I think it's appropriate to tell what's going on in the world. This is Charlie's Crab, also known as the Rotunda Inn, built by George Hodges. You can rent a room upstairs, by the way. Downstairs is the restaurant, and there's almost no trace of this left today. Almost no trace. It's gone. By the way, even the number of the road no longer exists because it's been filled in with houses. Now, if you want to get up here, so I'm still wearing my hat, I'm still 1900s. If you want to get up here, early 1900s, these are the nicest photos you're ever going to see. I said I was going to do a Disney version of this, right? There's so many traffic jams in Detroit to get out of the city to get up here, but you see horses and cars interacting, trolleys and horses, trolleys and cars. In downtown Detroit, I should have posted a picture. There's a million intersections of stuff going on. By the way, these trolleys, they run 40 to 50 miles per hour. Cars don't run that fast. Not in this area, not in this era. And the horses, of course, a horse free running is different than a horse pulling a trailer. But it's chaotic. Travel in Detroit is chaotic. It's not at all anything like today. This shows you Orchard Lake Road. This is, if you're standing at Walnut Lake Road and you're looking north, you see the dip of the road and then it goes up to the very top. On the right-hand side of the top of that is actually where West Bloomfield High School is today. And if you really look hard into my kind of bad old photograph, there's actually a trolley coming on the road. It's coming down the road. It's almost into the dip right now. But this is what life is really like in 1900. This is how rugged it is. By the way, are you surprised that the road is next to the trolley? It's that same thing again. If you get stuck, if it's a muddy day, you get stuck, you're going to have to get pulled out by the trolley because there's nobody else that's going to get you out. You're going to be walking wherever you're going. Now, here's my tribute to the historical societies of West Bloomfield and others. Working with the, there's this really long thing I'm trying to read, excuse me. These boards have been put up basically from Pontiac all the way down Orchard Lake Road. If you're walking on the old trail of the Grand Trunk Railroad or the old DUR electric trolley route, as you walk down these, you run into these wonderful little like factoid boards. They've all been put together by your local historical societies. And they're put out for your enjoyment. As you get close to the Pine Lake area, you'll see this board, and it's really fun. This woman in the middle is making fun of someone that is making fun of Henry Ford's in the middle. See Henry Ford in the middle? He was working on his bicycle, and one of the other members of the club complained about him being out there working on his bicycle. And she looked at him and goes, "Are you kidding me? That's Henry Ford, right? I mean, complain about somebody else. Don't complain about Henry." But here's the members of the original Auto Club of Detroit. And I gave this presentation one time before, and people didn't totally know who these people were. So watch this. Henry Joy, he's the president of Packard. Russell Alger, he's a lumber baron. He actually owns some of the railroads that are getting his lumber from up north down into the Detroit area. He also happens to be governor of Michigan. Roy Chapin, he's Hudson's Motor Car Company, maybe one of the best car companies ever made. Roy Chapin. Ransom Oldsmobile. But he's really in the truck business. He's known as REO Speedwagons. That's the man. So REO. By the way, all of his children are RE Oldsmobiles. So RE Olds. All of his, he just named them, making sure he kept using those initials. Maybe it's easier to monogram all your towels or something, but they're all REO. James Script Booth is a car designer, but he's actually probably one of the original founders of Chevrolet. He's trying to bring in good value into Chevrolet, and that's important to him. Henry Ford, I mean, I don't think I need to say any more about Henry Ford. James Couzens, mayor of Detroit. Then he becomes a senator. Not a lot of people know that he started his career at Ford Motor Company. He was a vice president, general manager of Ford before he got into politics. And then he gets into banking and he gets into real estate and a lot of other things. He's quite affluent. E.B. Finch, no big deal. He just designs his own cars, you know. He's one of those guys that's a founder. Charles Brady King is the first man ever to drive an automobile on the street of Detroit. He's also known as a genius in the mechanical world, and he helps Henry with the Model T. So he's one of those people that history books don't write about. But my favorite guy on the slide is actually George Hodges. Now, I've said his name maybe 5 times today. So he built the Auto Club of Detroit. He built the Rotunda Inn. He was schooled in Paris as an artist. He's from this area, but he's schooled in Paris. He's an artist. He's one of the founding charter members of the Scarab Club in downtown Detroit, which is our art community from Detroit. He's also credited as design of, he's got patents on the first modern cameras, on lawnmowers. This guy's incredible. You know, people in 1900, they don't have one job. He's got like 15. This guy's cool, right? He's also credited with the first closed body cab on an automobile. He's an artist. He lives on Pine Lake. Crazy. Okay, anybody ever heard of this guy? Anybody? Lawrence, no, that's great. I'm glad nobody's heard of him. He's the guy that built our home. And here's what he looks like. He's 34 years old in this photo, in 1905. He's been 8 years in the Michigan legislature. He's a senator and a congressman. He is friends with Henry Ford. As Henry Ford is tinkering with his A, B, C, D, E, F, G variants that ultimately become the Model T, he's actually loaning him some property. His business isn't exactly up and fully running yet. And so Lawrence, they're friends, and Lawrence actually owns a creamery, so he's your milkman. So he doesn't own the cows, he buys the milk, he repackages the milk and cheese and ice cream, and he'll deliver it to your house. He sells his company in 1912 for $100,000. Now, and by the way, he buys the land on Pine Lake after he sells. So that's about $3 million, and this isn't even his primary business. He's in the real estate business, and he's actually in the banking business with a guy named Henry Ford, and they are the Highland Park State Bank. By the way, also with James Cousins. So these guys, who are really the founding members of the auto industry and a lot of what we know about Detroit, they all know each other. They're all at Pine Lake together. They're all socializing together. So he also hires a guy by the name of William Cooney. There are a lot of William Cooney homes in Detroit. Anybody have a William Cooney or know of them? You know, there's a lot of them around here, a lot of them. Anyway, okay, so here's the family. My favorite person in this whole family tree is Estella. Estella is the wife of Larry Snell, Lawrence. She lists her title as socialite. Her goal is to get her name into print in the social pages every month. That's what she lives for. She has 3 kids. Lawrence Jr. Lawrence Jr. has a fabulous life. He marries very wealthy women, and he's basically a U.S. Navy career man. During World War II, he has an important role in the UK. One of the women he happens to meet and marry is Augie Papp's daughter. So Pabst Blue Ribbon, Milwaukee beer, part of the beer family. Gladys is the debutante of the family. Even says it in print, she's a debutante. She marries a guy by the name of John W. Davis. Anybody know that name? Any historian freaks out there? He actually ran for president of the United States of America in 1924. Lost miserably to Calvin Coolidge. Just for the record, he lost miserably. But she marries Gladys marries John W. Davis's son, who graduates, name of John W. Davis Jr. out of Princeton, right at the start of the stock market crash. And then the young Edward, the youngest of the bunch, who's also known as a daredevil, he decides to, he jumps off of a cruise ship for fun to show his manliness, but he joins the reserves. He's trying to become he's being a daredevil. He wants to go up and learn how to fly in the Air National Guard. Goes up in a plane with another pilot. They're flying around Detroit. They're doing a lot of acrobatics, and a wing falls off, and he perishes in downtown Detroit. So young Edward dies not much long after this photo is taken. And on the right, you should know that Estella, the socialite, loves Greenbrier. She's all about the high society of Greenbrier. And here's her two kids, actually at Greenbrier. I would say they're brother and sister, but I would say that's a pretty handsome couple. Look at how their clothes, look at how their lifestyle is in 1927. All right. The home that we live in was built in 1925. Lawrence dies in 1926, so 1 year into the home being built. He's probably best known as the father of the state fair. So he was very friendly to the farmers, and obviously his creamery was dependent upon the farmers and the ranchers. And at 8 Mile and Woodward, he's really the founder of everything that went on there. He's 56 years old. Estella, our socialite, gets remarried instantly to a Wall Street banker. They immediately go on a cruise through all of Europe. They come back, and his name is John Beals. They come back to Pontiac to see her homestead. He dies. So within a year, she's like the Black Widow, right? She's killed like everybody that surrounds her, but she's still a socialite. She's doing great for her kids, but she's really interesting. This is William H. Cooney. He's the architect of our home. And so now I'm going to get focused on the home a little bit. He claims to have built 500 homes in the last 15 years. So he comes to Detroit from Philadelphia when he's only 22 years old. And you can see some of the details in 1912. But 15 years later, he's built 500 homes. Detroit is booming in these country homes. This is actually our home, the Lawrence W. Snell residence at Pine Lake. And they advertise it, the homes, in this Afterglow magazine. The Afterglow magazine is the high society paper. It's a publication for the Bloomfield, Birmingham area. So all of these interconnected things between Estella, the socialite, the advertising, it's all intermingled together here. Now, if you meet Cooney, he's going to hand you this pamphlet. And this pamphlet is going to give you examples of all the different homes around Detroit he's made. He's going to hand you the pamphlet, and he's going to sit you down and say, okay, what do you want? Where do you want it? What's your budget? And let's get started. Because not only does he design the home, he also builds them. And so this is his pamphlet, courtesy of the Henry Ford Museum. Now, what makes Cooney kind of interesting? Man, he loves leaded glass. I mean, he's all about leaded glass. He's all about high-pitched roofs. Intricate plaster work. He loves these arched windows, and I'll show you a bunch of them in a second. This is an ad in 1930. You know what they're advertising? Flat, plain glass, meaning glass with no bubbles in it. Up until this point in time, all glass had bubbles in it because it was basically hand-blown. You blew the glass and then you would cut it into shape. By the way, this Libby Owens Ford, that Ford has no relationship with Henry, by the way. It's a completely different guy. But Libby Owens Ford glass, LOF, 1930, for the first time they figured out how to get bubbles out of glass. pretty interesting stuff. I mean, we take this stuff for granted, don't we? We take all, glass is glass, right? So here's Cooney. Here's Cooney at his best. This is our house on the inside. You see the plaster work, the plaster ceilings, the arched doors everywhere. He even cut squirrels into all the shutters. I mean, there are so many squirrels around Pine Lake. It kind of becomes a motif for the area. And some really fancy wallpaper, plasterwork. I'm going to show you a little more of this. So, here's the house. All of the history's over. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take you through the house. It's a 7,500 square foot house with a 2,500 foot garage, a 7-car garage. It's got 4 master suites on the second floor, and I'll explain that in a second. 10 bedrooms. Some have now been converted. We put in a second floor laundry and things like that. 5 full baths, 5 half baths, and a ballroom. Got to have a ballroom on Pine Lake. So when you think about restoring a home like this, we did it historically, trying to be accurate to the original architect. We didn't take liberties to try to do this ourselves. We're trying to make it, first when we bought the house, it's about function, then it's about aesthetics, and getting the house back to the way it should look. The number one question everybody asks is about the roof. So I'm going to jump right into the roof first, because it's a fun story. When we bought the house, and by the way, my wife's a master gardener, so all of those overgrown bushes, I think they were gone about the second day. But on the first day, when they're still there, we're looking at the house and the roof looks kind of bumpy and weird, and my dad's a contractor, and so I always have a ladder available, and so I start hopping up on ladders and I'm inspecting the roof, and it's just weird. I don't even understand why it looks like this. And the whole house kind of looks just kind of tired and overgrown versus some of the earlier pictures. The foyer's painted pink. You kind of walk in and Pepto-Bismol. And we accidentally left some of the windows open on the second night we lived there, and we had bats inside the house. And well, I mean, you live on a lake, mosquitoes, lakes, bats, house. You never leave your windows open. You just don't do that without screens on them. And ghosts, no, there's no ghosts. This house has really good karma. But the standout feature of the house is clearly the roof. So I knew this wasn't right. I could just tell by looking, and so I started crawling up on the roof and peeling away some of this stuff, and like, what's going on here? And finally I got to the point where I hired a group. They came out of Florida. This kind of roof is the only kind of roof that they do. They only do cedar shake roofs. So I determined it was a cedar shake. So here they are. By the way, see the invisible rope around the chimney for this guy? No, he doesn't have a rope on at all. Any OSHA people in here? Good. No OSHA? Good. So they start to strip the roof off. And here's what they find. At the very, very top, you see the bare roof with the little slots in between it? That's actually the structural part of the roof. And then they put tar paper over that to stop the leaking. And then the original roof is over here on the left. It's blue. It's blue cedar shake. It's stained blue. And on the right is asphalt shingles that are, so we figured it out, right? They evidently had 2 leaks on the roof. And rather than getting a cedar shake roofing guy out to fix them, they recovered the entire house with asphalt shingles. I mean, that's crazy. Mind blown. That's just crazy. So these guys are up here, and they're literally stripping all of the old roof off. I grabbed one section of it. Here's what the actual wood looked like. So this is the original roof right here. It's cedar shake. Oh, cedar shake? Look at these. Take about 50,000 of these and put them all together, and you get this roof. I mean, crazy. Got a couple props. And here they are. They keep stripping it off. Again, this guy doesn't have a rope. But I have a drone. So every time they go up there and start working on it, I start taking photographs. So I put the drone in the air, and that's how I get all these crazy images, because I'm probably 50 feet up in the air. This guy's on a crane rebuilding. You can see on the left of the crane, the roof has been stripped and all of the new material is actually there. And he's putting up this thing that's, this edging is rounded and it's fat on the top and it's skinny on the bottom. It's called carroting. And the only place in the country you find it is Michigan. So it's a Michigan design thing. And really interesting, but this poor guy's all the way up at he's 50, 60 feet in the air on a crane, tacking down these and trying to make it look pretty. And it's crazy to watch these guys. I would take it off a day from work and just watch them work. So on the left here, you have kind of what I call the naked roof structure. And on the right, they're recreating it. And see where I zoomed in a little bit on that yellow? Look at this. So you're literally taking these. You're taking these, all these boards are exactly the same. And to get to those shapes, and they have to hand cut them all. They're cutting them and they're placing them and they're positioning them to make them round because they're all exactly like this. And if they need them to curve, they put them in a bucket. And they put a fixture on it that bends it the way that they want it to. If they want to bend it in a round, you bend it around. If they want to bend it, up and down for a barrel, they have to bend all this stuff by soaking it in a barrel of water for like 3 days. And then while it's wet, then you put it back up. And you tack it into place, and as it dries in that shape. So I'll submit to you, this is crazy. This is a crazy way to build a roof. It's crazy. The guy, when I started, he said, Paul, just as an estimate, he goes, like if you're going to do a shingle roof, you're going to go out and get just normal asphalt shingles. He said, we can probably do that in a day. I said, well, how long is this going to take? He said, well, on hours or money? I said, well, both. On hours, these guys came up to Michigan from Florida, from Lake City, Florida. They were here for 7 weeks, working 7 days a week, 14 hours a day to do this. So much for doing it in a day. I mean, this took, a couple months of guys really working hard. When it's all done, and you can see it's about half done, they put boards up as they go because they got to climb up there. This is all done by hand. Every shingle is cut by hand. Every one. And when it gets done, it looks like this. It's gold. So it's called golden cedar. The one problem with golden cedar is as it ages, it turns a color that I would call close to death black, a really ugly black color. And so your choices are, do you want to stain it or do you want to leave it alone? And even in the world of clear coat, it's still going to fade and go ugly. There are probably 4 or 5 houses in the Detroit area that have the same roof, and they haven't stained them. And you can look at them. And Ann and I, we went and looked at those homes. And we just said, we're going to go back to the way it was originally done. And so, boom. Now, I will admit to everyone in here, it's a little bluer than what we planned. I think if you look at the shingles, I think that was the right color blue. So I don't know what happened, but maybe I'm on drugs. The shingle color, I think, was supposed to be the roof color, and I think the roof color is supposed to be the shingle. I don't know. Something got messed up. But the philosophy is we kind of wanted it to look like water. The waves of it's kind of blend in to look like the lake. We live on a lake, and it's beautiful, and so that was a philosophy. Maybe we screwed it up a little bit, but it is what it is. Now the problem is you get a beautiful looking roof and then the house looks like crap. So you got to see this poor guy on the bottom of this photo. You know what his job is? He gets to suck up leaded wood chips that have been, it's all leaded paint back in that area. Everything is. It's not like you had a choice. Do you want lead in your paint or not? No, it's all got lead in it. You don't have a choice. Just like asbestos. If you want insulation, you're getting asbestos. Anyway, they're scraping this off. But the poor guy on the bottom, he's going to vacuum, after you pull off all the plastic, he's vacuuming up all the wood chips. Great job, right? Terrible job. And then I realized when we walked up to the front porch that the front porch was caving in, and on the left you can see that one of the boards was starting to give way. What I didn't know is in the bottom right picture, if you actually go through, if you step on a board and it goes through, you're in the basement. So you're down 9 feet. No, you're not 6 feet under. You're down 9 feet, right? So I didn't know that the basement, you walk up to the front door. I had no idea we were walking over the top of the basement. I had no idea. Well, when you find out something like that, then you do this. You fill it back up with concrete and make sure it's nice and structurally solid. And that's what we did. And then, of course, we had to replace all the bluestone. You have to replace all the limestone caps that make up the steps. And you just keep, as a historian of the house, you just keep working around the house. So you go over to the pergolas, and the pergolas are all awful. You replace all the wood of the pergolas, right? I mean, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it the whole way, right? You don't do anything in life halfway. And then we finally get it done. The aesthetic of the outside is done in 2018. The gutters, by the way, are pure copper. They're copper. And the downspouts are all copper. All of the flashing on the roof is copper. Sometimes I hate to say this. I think someone's going to hop on my roof and take all the metal off and recycle it. And I'm going to have to buy it again. Okay, so what's this home all about? So the only way we know what this home's about is you got to ask Estella, the socialite, right? Now she calls the home Greenbrier Lodge. She loves Greenbrier. And so it's a summer home. It's built for socializing. It's Estella's home, and it's built for socializing and for guests. It's got a resort feel to it. Each of the rooms, when you check in to your hotel room, there's actually 4 master suites on the second floor. Each of the suites have the bedrooms, full bathrooms, sleeping porches, fireplaces, storage areas, and double locking doors. So you can lock the door from the inside or the outside. So if you're going to go play on the lake and you don't want anybody to come into your room, like a hotel of this era, you can lock the door. You're fine. Nobody's getting in. And it's got enough staff to service everybody in the house. So the whole third floor is effectively there for the staff that are going to support the house. So let's go inside and I'll show you what all of this is all about. I think you'll find it kind of interesting. So we walk in the front door. The first thing you see, incredible beveled leaded glass doors. And by the way, all of these doors on the front of the home, they also match the landing on the second floor. And then as you walk a little farther inside, here comes Cooney, our architect, with all of his arched doors. And you're going to see arched doors that have 1 door, 2 doors, and 3 doors. So he loves arches. He's putting them everywhere. Here's the formal staircase. And then look at the detail he puts into it. So on the walls, you have wallpaper. Inside, a wood molding covered with another accent color. And then there's another accent color up by the plaster. So repainting the wall isn't like you just go to, you just don't go to Home Depot and get a gallon of paint, right? You have to take all of this stuff off. And we resanded all the moldings down. You have to put them back up exactly so that they're square and perfect. But just look at the detail of how this is the architect, how he's thinking about putting this together. And so here's the kind of the family room. I would call this the main greeting room. When you come into the house, this is your main greeting room where you would greet your guests. And now I'm going to, the plaster ceiling looks incredibly weird. It looks like what you would do to a plaster ceiling if you were repairing it. If you had a lot of cracks and bumps, right? It's actually original. It's actually the way he did it. I just can't believe, it's not that high-class feel to it. It's all this artistic feel to it. And then he puts in stuff like, here's a sandstone fireplace mantle with a limestone surround. You go, wow, is that hard to clean? You know, you clean off sandstone, it goes away, it evaporates. Right? So now I've got a treat for you. The one funny thing about this house, here's a different view of the house. I have photos of every room in the house from 1925. And so what I'm going to do in this for the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly the same perspective on every room in the house today and 1925. See, we're doing a historical renovation. We're not doing this our way. We're trying to match what they did. So here's the first one. Ready? So here's that greeting room. There it is in 1925. Notice the same medallion, the same strange plaster on the ceiling. And by the way, their furniture is a lot nicer than ours in every photo. So that's 1925. Exact same doors, same everything. It's my favorite room in the whole house. You know, the porch. Remember when you had grand porches and the haint blue ceilings and you can look out over the water? This is my favorite place to sit. The room next to the greeting room is this room. This room is, we kind of call it a card room. And here's what it looked like in 1925. Except when we bought the home, see that little lamp? It didn't exist. It wasn't in the home. And so look real hard at that, and I want you to tell me, do you see a yellow parrot lamp in there? Because here's what I did. It took me about 6 years, and I chased this because I'm a nerd, and I do stuff like this. I'm weird, right? But I chased that light, and here's what it looks like. So this light was missing. It's a hand-blown glass ball. It's painted on the inside with colors. It's got a covering on the outside. When you put it back into the kiln to fire the glass, it brightens the colors on the inside and it cracks the finish on the outside. It's called a crackle finish. And then Handel signed it and numbers it, and then he puts the rest of the fixture together. So I took a long time searching for this. I went to every art glass collector I could find saying, you know, can somebody help me? Like, what is this? And I finally found a guy who said, oh, that's Handel. And so I found a Handel art collector in Iowa. All he collects is Handel art glass. And I called him and I said, hey, do you know what this lamp is? He goes, oh yeah, I know that lamp. He goes, I got one for sale. I go, great, I want it, ship it, you know, done. And he said, Paul, funny story. He goes, I think it came out of Michigan. I'm like, what? So I think I bought my own lamp back. Go figure, right? Here's the formal dining room. Again, Cooney's all about arched doors. I mean, in the beveled glass everywhere, glass windows everywhere. Here it is today from the right camera angle. So this is looking out to the front of the house, which would be over the lake. And here it is in 1925. I will submit to you that the Snells had better furniture than we do. I mean, we have Henryton, but holy cow, look at that. I mean, it's beautiful. Exact same lighting. That's different bulbs, obviously, but that's the same chandelier. Those are the same sconces. They still exist, which is thank God, because if I had to chase those, I'd probably go crazy. This is a better view. I just flipped the camera around so we could see. Here's the fireplace, a marble fireplace. Cooney, the house has 9 fireplaces, so Cooney has a lot of design freedom. You know, fieldstone on one, marble on the other. I mean, he's having a heyday putting, 9 different, like pull out the book, here's one of every one of them, so it's pretty cool. And his detail, these sconces are E.F. Kaufman. So nobody really knows E.F. Kaufman, but in New York City, he built silver plate, crystal, chandelier kind of sconces. It was his thing. And we have 4 of them in this room. They're irreplaceable. I couldn't find another one. But look at how Cooney's tricking us. He's got arched doors, he's got this wood work, he's got these accent colors. He's playing with us with this high-end kind of look of silver plate and all. So it's pretty interesting. This is right next to the dining room. This is a room that we call it's a breakfast room. You might call it a Florida room, a morning breakfast room. The tile on the floor comes from General Motors. See, General Motors is getting into the auto business, and they have a division called AC Delco. They make spark plugs. Around the spark plug is a little insulator made out of ceramic that you need to make a spark plug, so you don't short across the whole spark plug. Well, in 1920, they build this huge plant up in Flint, Michigan. And they start to make spark plugs, but they don't have any volume. So the execs of AC Delco say, we'll make tile. We'll just make tile. I mean, there's Plobic, this is called Flint faience. Flint's a city. Faience is a French word that means tile. Flint, by the way, the whole book. Got the whole book on. They go into business in 21. They're out of business by 1933. Why? Automobile production's up. So now they need spark plugs, but they don't need tile. But in 1921, they need tile. And the reason that I can be so definitive on this tile, that geometric pattern on the floor, by the way, it's in the book, but it's so unique. It's a strange geometric pattern, and it's unique to Flint faience tile. It's like their thing, where you see some Plobic and you say that kind of gloss, that's their thing. This is their thing for floor tile, okay? Now right next to this is the butler's pantry. So the butler is responsible for getting the food, putting it on the plates. The cabinets store the china, the crystal, all the stemware. And the butler's in charge of serving. Now, I'm not trying to get all Downton Abbey on you, but there is a hierarchy that exists between butlers and maids. Who can do what and who can serve what? Well, this stuff's expensive in this era. And after they serve it, they bring it back to the butler's sink. They wash it off by hand, obviously china. You know, is it dishwasher safe? You know, it's as safe as a butler, right? And he puts it right back in the cabinets that I just showed you. And this is the life in the 1920s, mid-20s. So I'm going to show you the kitchen, but you got to promise not to boo me, because here's the kitchen. It looks like a modern kitchen, right? The only thing my wife demanded, all the cabinets are actually the exact same as they were originally. So the cabinet design, they're exactly the same design. Obviously, all the appliances and all of the toppings are new. But let me show you today from the right camera angle. And now if you're a woman or a male that likes to cook, and you like this next slide, you and I need to talk, okay? So here's the original kitchen. Ready? So on our right is the stove and cutting areas, dual-sided refrigerators. So the cook and the kitchen staff would put the food, if it needs to be cool, they'll put it in this side of the refrigerator. You go on the other side at the butler's pantry and you open it up, and you know, if you have dessert, you pull it out and then you serve it, right? So dual-sided refrigerators. But look at it, you know, this is a photo from 1925. It already looks dirty as hell. I mean, look at the floor. I mean, the cabinets. I mean, yeah, it's kind of gross. Anybody know what this is? This thing on the left? I think it's generically called like a maid or service call button, but the real word for it is called an annunciator. An annunciator. And so what happens is, if you're in one of the other rooms, see the little upper right, there's a little switch. If you push the switch, then over here, corresponding with the number of which room of the house it is, the little indicator comes up and turns, 90 degrees, and then the little bell rings. And so that lets the people that are in the kitchen, the wait staff, know that somebody needs help. You know, if you need help putting on your dress, you have someone ready that can come up and help you put on your dress. So the formality of the 20s is really interesting. So I've only showed you the formal front side of everything. Here's the back side. So the back side is that there's a back door that's not formal at all. There's a back staircase. You can go from the basement to the 3rd floor on the back staircase, not on the front staircase. If you're a guest in the home, you can't go more than the 2nd floor. If you're a worker, you can go from basement to the 3rd floor. And on the 3rd floor are where they live, where all of the wait staff live. So let's run around the house and almost we'll speed up on these last few slides. Here's my library today. Here it is in 1925. See the Native American art, by the way? Native American art in early Detroit is extremely popular, extremely popular. You see it in the buildings in downtown also. Here's a fieldstone fireplace in the same room. On the 1st floor, this is what I call the Monet Giverny lavatory. You see, when you have GM tile all over your house, and if the tile is green from Flint faience, you kind of have to match the colors or else you have to retile the whole room. So all of the tiles are original. We chose not to retile it. We added a colorful wallpaper to it. Every lavatory in the house has pedestal sinks, and it has these toilets, which the toilets are Sloan valves. That's, what you see in the airport. You hit the little lever and, it shoots like 6,000 gallons of water on you. Yeah, that's, the whole house has Sloan valves. Not conventional at all. So let's go upstairs. This is our formal way to go to the 2nd floor. There's a landing, so when you go up to the landing, you see these beautiful curtains. From photos, we recreated those curtains from photos. So, and original lamps, and I'll show you a little different view. So here from the right camera angle, so here it is in 1925. Same railing, same curtains, same lighting. Beautiful. It's beautiful. This is the master bedroom. I'll go a little faster on this. That's actually a king bed. So these rooms are quite large. The coloration of every room, by the way, all you have to do is look at the tile. When you see the tile, you know what color the room is. So you get kind of a mauve-y colored fireplace, you're going to have a mauve-y colored room. And then master bath. The shower is over here on my right. I'll show you that in a couple slides. But the detail work here on these fireplaces is really pretty spectacular. This is a wood, obviously painted mantle, but very beautiful. Now, some of you may be saying, well, Paul, why is there a door in your master bedroom? That's kind of weird, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Because in the next room, this is where the woman of the house would keep all of her clothing. And so it's a sleeping porch, but it's also her place where she can dress in private. She even has her own toilet. So in addition to the master bathroom, you have another master half bathroom on this home. In the 2nd suite, you see gray when you start with gray tile, you're going to get a gray room. So this is the 2nd of the master suites. Here it is from another angle. That's all original lighting in there, and interesting. Here's the bathroom. Now, has anybody ever seen a shower like that? It's a 270-degree shower. So what you do is you get in, and one valve you turn on, and you get water from the top. And you turn on the other valve, and you get water 270 degrees around you, which is great, but if the door ever stuck, you'd probably drown. I mean, it's got a lot of water flying, a lot of water going through here. But a black and white bathroom. There's a sleeping porch on this room. So beautiful. Now, if you look on the far left, you'll see that window's actually open. So all of these windows can open up to let the cool air go through in 1910. Today we have it all air conditioned. So It's more of a sitting room and a nice place to go read a book. Here's the third suite. It's my daughter's. Again, look at the tile. The tile will always tell you the story. It's kind of a yellowy cream color. So we did an accent in kind of a mauve, and then the bathroom, which is really exciting. You know, it's pretty bright yellow, and that's the third master suite. Here's the fourth. So there's a lady by the name of Dorothy Draper. She designed all of Greenbrier. And so this pattern is really kind of an homage to Dorothy Draper. You know, so remember, Estella Snell loved Greenbrier, and so we wanted to bring one room and make it feel like a Greenbrier room. That's this room. My youngest daughter loves Tiffany blue, so we get Tiffany blue and then this crazy wallpaper. This is a beautiful little, this was a sleeping porch with air conditioning. It's now like a little music room for her to sit in and play her music. And then there's another full bathroom. The shower here on this photo is on my left. I couldn't get it in the frame. And you have 4 master suites, all with double locking doors, each one with a fireplace, each one with a full bath. And then the staff quarters are upstairs on the 3rd floor. Now, if you're on the 2nd floor, there's one door that's normally locked. You can't get to the 3rd floor. So you're, as a guest of the house, you're in the basement to the 2nd floor. If you're staff, well, you can get up to the 3rd floor. And by the way, the rooms on the 3rd floor are just as big as the 2nd floor. They're just as big. So in the upper left is one room. We have bunk beds in there for our grandkids. This is a full king on the upper right, full king. When you see there's a half bath and a full bath upstairs as well, and another room on both sides. So my guesstimate is they probably had about a staff of 6. It looks to me like they had a butler and a housekeeper, and they may have been married, a cook, some housemaids, and a footman to run around. So it looks like the staff of the house, and I'm excluding the gardener. The chauffeur lives out in the garage. On the 2nd floor of the garage. And so if we go downstairs now from the 1st floor, as you walk down the stairs, there are beautiful terrazzo floors. Now here's the ballroom, because when you're out socializing, you need to dance. And there's the ballroom. Another stone fireplace. On the door on the left is actually a bathroom. On the right is how you came into the room. But I can easily see a ballroom type activity, dancing going on here. On the left, you'll see there's actually a raised stage. You could put a 3-piece band or a 4-piece quartet might be in there. I happen to like to play pool, so I have a pool table in there. Instead of I don't dance, I play pool. And so we use this room for socializing. Did I mention I had a locomotive? Well, state-of-the-art technology for heating in 1925 is a locomotive. So I actually went to the Henry Ford Museum and I started measuring the water tank sizes of their locomotives. Yeah, I told you I'm a weirdo, I'm a nerd. But this looks to me to be like a small-sized locomotive. It had burners underneath it. Oh, by the way, there's also a coal chute. You back your truck up filled with coal, dump it into a coal chute. Some poor guy, the footman, is going to be shoveling the coal into the furnace. This furnace would be enclosed, not open, but there is the burner unit is in the photo at the very bottom. And you heat up the water and it's steam heat through the house. Wow, not easy, not a great place to live in the wintertime. And then we look out the back. This is looking out the back. This is actually facing north, so you'd be looking at the Pine Lake Golf Course. And this is our backyard. You can see the garage is back there on the left. And if I look a little 1925, there's a tennis court back there. There's also farm implements like a gardener's shack back there where you could put a tractor back there, whatever. You could put all your farm implements and stuff back there. And this is exactly what the property looked like in 1925. And so I'm a car guy, so I have a garage back there. The chauffeur's quarters are upstairs. The cars go downstairs, and yeah, I'm a little crazy on my cars, but this is kind of what it looks like, right? Epoxied the floors and all the garbage. That's just me. Yeah. See the little yellow circle, though? When we were redoing the chauffeur's quarters, we found 3 license plates in the wall. They're all right there. It's a 1915, a 1916, and a 1917 license plate. Now, that's before the house was built. So I don't know if they did it for a joke or if someone was actually using old license plates, but I pulled them out of the wall and I stuck them to the wall. So kind of cool. Now, I couldn't find any pictures of the original owner, the Snells, cars, but I did find one. Here's the second owner of the house. Her name is Mary J. Craig, and here's her driver, and this is the back of our house. He's pulled up the car. She's going to get in, and she's actually a nurse in World War II. So she's being taken to, most likely to, she looks like she's in her nursing attire, and her driver's going to take her there. Now, if you don't like cars, okay, here's some water shots for you. We do have a little boathouse. On the upstairs, it's a screened-in area where you have a table in there and you can sit there and have a nice lunch. On the lower level is a dock. That's where we store the dock in the wintertime. And obviously, you see the dock and the boats out there, and you can kind of see the aerial view over there on the left. So, in summary, I'm going to run you through all of the years of the house real quick under the different ownership. So when the house is brand new, it looks like this, brand new. It's the earliest known photo we have. It happened to be taken by the Manning brothers. The Manning brothers professional photography group. If you ever see a beautiful photo from 1880 to 1930, the Manning brothers probably took it. They're a fantastic group. And their photography still exists in archives in Detroit today. But I found this. That's the first known picture of the house. This is what it looked like when the Snells lived there. Notice now you have awnings, you have a little bit of landscaping coming in. So this is when it's probably at its best. You have a screened-in porch. They've done some extra You start seeing trees. You don't see those in the very first photo. Now, when the second owners are the Craigs, now they call the house the Blue Jay house. The Blue Jay home. Their daughter is named Frances Craig Bowles, and she's actually the last of that family to live in the house. She's also kind of known as the cat lady. Later in her years, she's collected 50 or 60 of the local stray cats, and they're living in here with her, probably eating some incredibly good food. She is the one that's been known that she was trading different assets of the family for servicemen to do work on the house. And we know of a couple cases where she traded Civil War rifles for somebody to work on the boiler. We met the man firsthand who said he did it, and he got one of the Civil War guns. After the second owners, Dean Buchanan, Dean is a lawyer here in Detroit. They were the third owners, and we are the fourth owners. I think this is probably day 3 because all the landscaping is ripped out. And it was so overgrown, we ripped it out immediately. And this is what it looks like today. All fully restored. And a big labor of love that went into that. And so my final slide is this one. The house has 100 names. And I don't know what names you have for it, but the Snells called it Greenbrier. The Craigs called it the Blue Jay house. But we have people that call it the Hansel and Gretel house, the Frosted Cupcake, the Gingerbread, the Cat Lady. I mean, this house is more popular than I am by far. This house is popular, right? I met a guy in LA and he goes, "Oh, I used to live in West Bloomfield." I go, "Well, you ever remember that house on Pine Lake that was the blue house? Or the house with the blue roof?" He goes, "I know that house." Boom, right? And so that's really the end of my story. But I hope you learned something. I hope it was fun for you.